Man, this year has been so weird for me. It's been a year of just random things that I never thought I'd be playing. As someone who really hasn't dug really deep into like JRPGs all that much, I've never really grew up on anything Pokemon related, never played Xenoblade, never played Fire Emblem, and these are series that I kind of just always passed by and just wasn't a fan of. When they announce new games, I'm just like, I absolutely do not care what's actually coming out. What's next? You know what I mean? Until I finally decided to take a leap this year and try some of these games for myself. Starting off with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and I was so happy I did so. This was one of the greatest stories I've ever witnessed. It was some of the best gaming I've experienced, some of the best casual gaming I've experienced in years. Man, it was such a treat to be able to play that game. But no, I'm not talking about Xenoblade here. I am also eventually going to jump into the world of Fire Emblem. I'm just, backlogged with a million games right now. But enough of that. I'm here to talk about Pokemon. Now, this video is technically a little clickbait. I know, Nin10doland clickbaiting. So this technically isn't my first Pokemon experience. I was actually talked into trying Pokemon back at the start of the Nintendo Switch. My first technical game was Sword and Shield. Yeah, I know, everybody's throwing tomatoes at me, but you know what, I didn't really have a choice. That's when I decided to jump in. I did complete the whole game and actually completed my decks, but I really don't remember much about it. It was a long time ago, before I even started my YouTube channel, and I kind of just did it, put the game down, never played the DLC or anything else, and never thought about it again. Now, it still is very nostalgic to me as it's my first Pokemon experience, but since then, I still really didn't jump into Pokemon. I did buy Pokemon Legends Arceus. I barely played it though. I played for like an hour or so and put it down, and I completely skipped out on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It seems like that might be a good thing. So I don't know if it's just because it's the start of the Switch 2 and this is technically like the third Switch 2 game. There's not many besides Donkey Kong and Mario Kart, so I wanted to play something else or what, but I think the thing that really drove me into this game was the combat. After coming off of Xenoblade Chronicles, a lot of people were saying that the combat was similar to that. I didn't love the combat in Xenoblade, but I thought it was better than the combat in Pokemon. That's kind of been my biggest issue. I hate the turn-based combat in Pokemon. I genuinely hate it. If there was actually more to it, I think I'd be a lot more interested into the series, but sitting there and waiting to take your turn and they take their turn, just a classic RPG, genre, it just never has been my thing. So let's just talk about that. You know what I mean? Let's talk about the combat. Let's just go into things that I thought about this game. I completed the game. I will be talking about some spoilers in the end of the game at the end of the video, but I will warn you before I get there. But I will be showing off some gameplay as well, me just going through battles and a couple of the mega battles as well. But I do want to start off talking about the battles because, yes, I was so happy with this. This is what I want with the battle system. I feel like this is something that's quick, intuitive, and easy to learn. You can clearly see which moves are, the most effective, which ones that you need to be using, which ones that don't work, and just throwing out your Pokemon and just, letting them go at it. You know what I mean? There's no slow take your turn. Everybody just chucking out attacks and it's just a big brawl. And I love this. Like, this is exactly what I just kind of imagined Pokemon being from the beginning, and seeing that, that wasn't what it was when I was playing Sword and Shield. It was just kind of like, oh, I don't like this battle system that much. There's no long cutscene jumping into a battle. You just immediately go, you know what I mean? And I love that aspect. Slight spoiler warning for some in-game mega battles. If you don't want to see the mega evolutions, just go ahead and skip to the time that I place on the screen. But these battles were like my favorite part of the game. These are awesome because it requires you to not only have your Pokemon, attack and, control their commands and everything like that, but it also has you moving around the battlefield, protecting your Pokemon during certain attacks, calling him back into his Pokeball, and just kind of positioning yourself on the battlefield to not take damage. These mega battles just felt like Pokemon boss battles to me. It was so cool how I myself, as the trainer, had to actually dive, move out of the way, and do certain things around the battlefield. Like, there was some ice-themed mega Pokemon, I forgot exactly which one it was, but it was shooting icicles down, and you had to actually hide behind the icicles before the blizzard hit and froze you to death, which I thought was so cool. Or take Mega Starmie here, where they're blasting these giant, geysers of water at you, and you have to hurry up and dive out of the way each time around. And it's just stuff like that I thought was so cool. It was intuitive. It was different. It was actually having me do things and not stay stationary and just pressing an attack that my Pokemon could do. I, the trainer, had to actually move around the field and get out of the way. And I would love this if they continued to incorporate it within the main games. Like, for instance, if, there's more boss battle type of Pokemon that you have to fight, where you have to do certain things with your trainer, and maybe even, go even deeper with it. Have the trainer do some type of puzzles as you're also multitasking, sending your Pokemon out to fight. Stuff like that would be really cool. And I felt like I was just constantly at motion doing something during these battles. And yeah, I'm sorry. I can go on and on and on about these. I loved these in Pokemon Legends ZA. Now, let's talk about something that I wasn't a huge fan of, and that would definitely be the city itself. I was a little confused. When I first saw that this was announced, I was thinking to myself, as someone who never even played like the original Pokemon, X and Y, I was like, running around a giant open world city to catch Pokemon with nothing but buildings and streets just doesn't sound interesting to me. And of course, long and behold, it's not that interesting to me. I mean, I can see why some people like it, but personally, I'm just more of a fan of, nature and that open world, trees, grassland, maybe desert, snow region, just having biomes and stuff to look for Pokemon. Now, I know what you're going to say. Go play Pokemon Legends Arceus. And yes, that is the one thing that I really liked from that game. Once again, I don't know why I stopped playing it. I completely forget. But yeah, I did like the fact that, the environments looked the way that they did. They may not have had the best graphics or anything like that. And that's another thing. I'm not even talking about the graphics. Okay, the building doesn't have a couple of window or, ledge textures, whatever. I mean, it's not a big thing for me. Like, my big thing was just the gameplay. It's always been gameplay with Nintendo games for me. But yeah, I just wasn't a big fan of running on the roofs. I didn't think it was that interesting. Sometimes battling Pokemon on the roofs, the enemy Pokemon would fall off the roof and I'd have to chase it, or it would disappear or, despawn. I don't know. I just wasn't a big fan of this. And the whole like Rotom phone thing to help you glide was just very laggy when you used it. You jump off the roof, you slowly fall, you pull out the phone and it does this really slow loop-de-pull thing to pull you to the next roof. Wasn't a big fan of that. It didn't feel smooth. Nothing about traversing the city, going up onto the rooftops or anything felt smooth to me. And I don't know. I just wasn't a big fan of finding Pokemon in an urban city district. You know what I mean? It just wasn't my cup of tea. Now, it wasn't anything that was a major issue. Like, for instance, the wild zones and stuff was pretty cool. It was cool to pull up to a wild zone and try to find every Pokemon that spawns in that zone and get that completion check mark. That felt really good. And also just kind of going through some of those little obstacle courses that has the purple screw for you to collect. And there's just a couple areas that look pretty cool, but for the most part, I just kept finding myself getting lost. I'm like, everything looks the same in the city. It's one giant city where almost every building just looks like a copy and paste of the last building. So nothing really stood out to me about the map or about the world. And also, I think it'd be pretty cool if there was like a vehicle that you could pull out. I know some of the other Pokemon games, like you could pull out a bike and like the classic ones. I'm surprised that you can at least have a bike or a scooter or something to get around this city. Yes, you can teleport, which, I just did all the time, but simply just running down a street collecting some, staggering collectibles that you can sell at the shop and stuff. It just wasn't that interesting to me, breaking crystals over and over and over again. I really just wish if we had like a bicycle and then some type of tool to break the crystals as we drove by, would have been a lot cooler to me. Now, as someone who wasn't a big fan of the story, I felt like there wasn't much there to captivate me or anything like that, even into the end. I will say it was cool how they handled this game and its characters. I thought all the characters were awesome. Every single one of them had their own little thing to them. Even the ones that really made me mad, I'm talking to you, Tani. But yeah, the characters were cool. I liked the tournament system where like you had to rank up from Z all the way to A. That was pretty cool. And even though we skipped half of those letters in the first half of the game, which is pretty interesting, it was always cool to see who the next opponent was going to be and what we had to do to actually find that opponent. So they had like some puzzle elements tied into it with some side quests in order to get those done, and lots of battling, which was awesome. I love some of the stories and some of the things that we had to do with some of those characters. I thought that was awesome. And from what I remember of Sword and Shield, and like for the rest of the Pokemon games, it seemed like there's always gym members with specific types and stuff. They're technically here, but not in the same way. There's no gyms or anything like that. These are just, certain ranked individuals within this tournament, and that you'll eventually come across different, type warriors and stuff. But I like the way they handled it this time. It wasn't the same like, oh, you go to this gym, fight this gym master, go to this gym, fight this gym master. You know what I mean? They tied them well into the story, and it was always interesting to see who in the world I was going to be fighting next. The side quests are fine. I'm starting to realize with JRPGs that there's not much you can do with a side quest, especially after playing Xenoblade 1. I hated those side quests. I mean, that was probably my biggest flaw with the entire game, is those side quests sucked. There are like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, and they have you doing some of the most brain dead things, going around collecting tons of a certain, collectible, or, fighting a certain enemy over and over and over again until I get that collectible. Where with Pokemon Legends ZA, they tried to be creative with some of them. You might have to take a Pokemon around a park and burn all the bushes or something, or chase a Pokemon through alleys or through a unique area in order to find something that it's hiding, or take out some type of giant strong Pokemon for somebody, or just battling different people among the city. I felt like they did a pretty good job with them, and none of them really made me just say, like, I hate this. They were all unique and different enough to keep me engaged just enough to do them, which I think is a big task to do for a JRPG side quest. So yeah, I actually think they were pretty well handled in this game. Now, before I get into the end of the game and my experience overall and wrap all that up, I do want to say one thing that I did feel is not necessarily with the graphics. It didn't bother me whatsoever. What bothered me was it did feel a little cheap in situations. It just feels like things that we should be seeing in a game in 2026 almost that we're still not seeing. It's certain things that just made me laugh. It just seems like they cut corners in any way that they can. For instance, in certain scenes where maybe you have to hop into a cab car and it takes you somewhere through a side quest, instead of showing the car drive, it just, oh, black screen, oh, you're there. You know what I mean? And they play everything. Like, literally, there's a side mission where you have to take this taxi, and this woman has never really driven before, and she's trying to take you, and it's telling you everything that's happening in the car without showing you. It's a black screen. It's showing you just words of her saying, oh, almost hit something, or oh, I got to stop the car. But it doesn't show you any of that. It's just like, it's strange. Or an instance where you walk up to a lever in order to pull a lever to turn the lights on or anything, but he doesn't even physically pull the lever. He just walks up to it and the screen cuts black because they don't want to animate that. I'm just like, what? That's the type of stuff I can see people complaining about, or how all the characters' mouths moves in scenes, but there's sometimes no music or anything. It's just their mouths moving and just the sound of them moving around, but there's no words. You know what I mean? There's no voice acting. It does sound a little strange, and it's just stuff like that. It just makes me feel like, the company's not pouring all their money, time, and assets into making this game better. And that's the only thing that I feel like was holding it back. It just seemed like a lot of the areas of the game, they cut corners instead of doing, above and beyond, like something a Mario game or a Zelda game would have. So I'm about to dive into the ending real quick. If you just want to jump into my final verdicts and skip to the time showed on the screen. Alrighty. I thought the ending of this game was excellent. Honestly, it actually made me care about the story a little bit more. I hate, though, when games wait until the very end to just dump a whole story on you, and that's pretty much what it felt like. Until, like, the fourth quarter and final act of this game, it's when it really dumps it all on top of you. Like, man, okay, now I understand what's all going on and everything, because, like, during the rest of the game, I just could not care. Like, I just, like, I barely understand what we're even supposed to be doing here. Like, this is just stupid. We're just supposed to get the A rank. I don't care. But yeah, the story did get a little deep at the end. Of course, I didn't play the original Pokemon X and Y, so like I don't know too much about the characters and some of the stuff that they're talking about, but still it was somewhat telling me what was happening. And either way, I thought it was awesome how they pieced it together. Having that final battle, which I thought was against the fire team, just to go up against my own partner, you know what I mean, because she was just being a brat and wanted to control everything, and even though she lost, she still won, I guess. But with all the rubble all over the city, the whole final segment of making my way through the city with the help of the previous, gym members, technically not gym members, you know what I'm talking about, the main characters of this game, them coming along and helping you again one last time was awesome. Like, I loved all the little things they had you doing, one last giant obstacle course, because why not, and just fighting off more mega Pokemon as they're running through the streets. It was really cool. Like, I love what they did with that. The final battle was really climactic as well. I just wish it wasn't us fighting two flowers as Zygarde was up there just doing all the cool stuff. Like, here we are just fighting two plants, over and over again as Zygarde just going at it with a giant tower beast. But yeah, I thought this was actually really cool. I love just watching Zygarde go like Optimus Prime on this thing. Like, I don't even know who he is or who any of these things, characters, Pokemon are. Like I said, I'm just really getting started technically, so I'm learning as I go, but like, I freaking love Zygarde already. That dude's awesome. So where am I at overall with this game? Well, I do plan on actually going back and 100% completing it. The only reason I'm actually stopping is because of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, and then there's just like a onslaught of games that I gotta play still. So I will come back to this game. I don't know when, I don't know how soon, but I will. I've done a good chunk of the side quests. I think I have about 15 to 20 left, and then I still have to fill out the rest of my decks, and I know there's DLC coming back in like December. Maybe that's when I come back after Metroid Prime 4 towards the end and beginning of next year. So yeah, that'll probably be what I do, but I really like this game. I did, and I texted my Pokemon buddies. I was just like, dude, this is a fun game, and I've had a really fun experience, believe it or not. I don't think it's the greatest thing I ever played, but it definitely was a lot of fun. I'd give it around an 8, honestly. A pretty good score, all things considered. I've never really dove into the world of Pokemon or anything, but I like the direction that they're taking. I still think having a better landscape would be better for this. Maybe even tying in, one of my favorite parts about Arceus that I did enjoy when I played it for a little bit is just throwing the Pokeball and catching Pokemon, just having to throw it really well and stuff. I wish that part was tied in with this battling. And like, dude, you got me. But with my JRPG adventure this year, I also started playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. I didn't start playing it, I beat it. I beat it almost 100% as well. But out of all the JRPGs this year, I wouldn't say it's my favorite. I think I still really enjoyed Final Fantasy VII Remake probably the most. And then a close second would have been Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and then Pokemon. But then I'm also getting ready to try Fire Emblem. I was going to do Engage. Everybody said, absolutely not, go 3 houses. So now I just have Engage in the wrapper on my shelf with nothing, to do with it. So I guess we'll be going to 3 houses when I get the opportunity. But yeah, if you've never played a Pokemon game and maybe this is the video for you, I'd say give it a try. I really did enjoy it, and I think you would too if you just, gave it a try and seen, what's up with it. But thank you for tuning in. Let me know down below what you thought about Pokemon Legends ZA as a fan, or maybe someone that's new to the series like me. And I'll see you all in the next one, and have a blessed day, guys. See ya.